Welcome to Look Behind the Look, the celebrated podcast that explores your favorite looks in film, television, and fashion history. Through conversations with the fashion world's elite and award-winning hair, makeup, and costume designers on sets around the world, you will see and hear exciting tales from behind the scenes, career origin stories, and tons of advice and tips. I'm your host, Tiffany Bartok. Hey everybody, welcome to Look Behind the Look. We are really digging into award season now. As you know, 'tis the season, and I'll be bringing you all of the contenders. This week, we are talking about Oppenheimer. We're talking with Jaime Leigh McIntosh and Luisa Abel, and they are the women who were faced with the challenge of creating realistic looks for black and white, for color, aging people across the decades, and making everything look perfect for IMAX, for 70 millimeter, and for high definition. So how did you see the film? I saw it in 70 millimeter. I would love to hear from you if you saw it in IMAX. The day that this comes out, this episode, it's going to be available to you digitally if you haven't seen the film already and you prefer to see it, at home. A lot of people are planning on buying the DVD, old school, which I kind of like. I like the idea of that. Big secret. I still buy DVDs. I have a lot of them. Yeah, and I buy them new even. I know I still want the special features. I don't like finding them on YouTube. It's weird. But do you do that? Anyway, let's get to this conversation with these amazing women who had quite a job ahead of them with director Christopher Nolan. Please enjoy. And as always, let me know what you think. Hi, Jaime Leigh and Luisa. We're here today, and I am so grateful because I know your schedules are insane. So this has been really great that you took the time to talk to me today about Barbie. I mean, Oppenheimer. That's my joke. I was saving that joke. Did you like that joke? We are talking about Oppenheimer today and your incredible work in the hair and makeup department. And I have so many questions, but I want to start with we were just talking, Jaime Leigh and I were just talking about, you did a little bit of thinking about the numbers of your extensive work in this film, and how many people did you come to find out that you aged or worked on in that respect?
Yeah, so I went back through everything because Jaime Leigh and I've been talking about it, and we realized that there were 73 speaking parts.
Oh my God.
And there were 18 agings over the course of the whole film. And with 18, that's 18 characters. Within those characters, some of them had 5 levels of aging. So it's 18 people needed to be aged. So yeah, some of them had 5, some of them just had 2 agings, but it was an endeavor.
And was it 5? What decades were we dealing with? Like, let's just tell everybody the whole scope of the years that we covered in this film.
Yeah, so
I'm going to say the wrong numbers.
Yeah, I know. Oppenheimer and went through the whole time. So he went from 1920s through to 1960s, and amazingly enough, he was 59 years old in 1960, even though obviously he didn't look 59 years old, at least not what we imagine 59 now. And then obviously, like, his wife Kitty wasn't there at the beginning of the 1920s side, so some of the other characters didn't do the whole span of that, but Oppenheimer did right the way through, from right through to 60s.
When thinking about what 59 looks like then and now, you used points of references in pictures that you saw, obviously, and then what did you take into consideration about Cillian and how you would make that believable?
Yeah, sure. So we met every actor and then figured out, how they looked as the age that they are now, and then we realized quite quickly that we would have to find the sweet spot of where they could look how they looked right now, and then either make them look younger or older depending on what their character looked like. Some people like Lawrence looked quite young for his age, relatively, for that era. But there were other people like Kitty, who obviously was an alcoholic by the end of her life. And so she definitely looked older than her age.
Right.
At the end, she was only 53 years old. So it's it was an interesting puzzle, and
Yes.
one that we had make sure that we could transition everyone, so it was really believable.
Yeah, it certainly was believable. That Kitty in particular, what did you do to show her deconstruction? I mean, I know I saw, just knowing alcoholism, and what did you take into consideration that would show her sort of deteriorating?
Well, I mean, obviously Emily Blunt is a very beautiful
Yeah,
woman. and
exactly.
and she's also very, very young. So we had to decide, and we did this, Jamie Lee and I did this with many meetings with the director.
Mhm.
So, are you freezing again, or are we good?
No, you're okay.
You're good. We did many meetings with the director, and we we basically figured out the maximum amount of prosthetics that we wanted to use on Emily, and found where we wanted to put that, and then took it down from there. So we used prosthetics for a portion of her time, and then outside of that was character work, where we would just break her skin down and make her look more tired, more ruddy. So to transition it so that we could gradually take those stages with Jamie Lee's stuff up through to when we had full prosthetics on her at the end.
Now, when you decide the level of prosthetics that you're going to use, do you show Christopher Nolan this, and then he says, I don't believe that? What's the process like? Like, just put me into that room.
Yeah, well, with this one specifically, I'd spoken to Chris very early on about what he wanted, as far as, did he want people to look exactly like the characters? So what direction he wanted us to go in. And once we knew what that was, and it wasn't going to be a look-alike, it was going to be the actors looking like an essence of who those people were.
Wow. Yeah.
We
That's
also
cool.
we also knew that we had to make people look older in a really believable way, because they were going to be in rooms with people who were older themselves with no prosthetics. And most of those scenes had that. So most of the pre-discussions and then eventually the testings were following that avenue of going that every choice had to be considered so that it added value to the film and wasn't distracting in any way. And if we felt that at any point something was distracting, that to reduce it slightly and keep it at that sweet spot, so that the audience was never distracted by the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Jamie Lee and myself did was, with Jason Hamer, who is at the prosthetic lab that I've worked with many times before, we did kind of digital versions of what we thought could be the last portion of what people could look like, to kind of get Chris's view on whether that was too much or whether he liked that. And once we Jamie Lee and myself had figured what Chris liked and what that last portion was, then we could do all the illustration versions of everything from before and start to test and work from those. That's how we did it.
Wow, that's a fascinating process. It was so effective.
Yeah.
I was saying to Jamie Lee earlier that, like, it was so difficult to track, but the times and the jumping around, I can't imagine what you guys went through. It must have just been completely exhausting. But that's one way, is I just have an eye for, looking at their faces, and you guys did such a good job of staying true to the time that they were all representing. Especially in the courtroom scene. Well, courtroom, the the room where the deposition was given. But Jamie Lee, can you talk a little bit about? I heard that Chris was like, let's let's not do wigs. I'm not a fan of wigs. So how did that conversation go?
It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
When Christopher Nolan says that he doesn't want to use wigs, you're like, okay, boss, let's figure this out. So yeah, that was interesting. It just meant for me and our department, it was a lot of painting of hair. But both Luisa and I had actually said to him, there's only kind of so far you can go with painting before you start being able to read it on camera, with it being IMAX and all that type of stuff. So I just had to come up with different techniques for each character, depending on their hair texture, their hair color that we were starting with. So like Benny Safdie, for instance.
Oh my God. Great work on him.
So dark naturally, like it's like a blue-black almost.
Wow.
So anytime you put like a white or something on it, would kind of throw blue. So it was just testing with him, everybody, to do a mixture of airbrushing, hand painting, using like white and silver pens and painting that on. And then different levels, of course, as Luisa was saying, so many of them have different stages of aging. So that's different graying. They may start through the temple, and then we start working it all the way through to their oldest age. So there was that. And I think for some of the characters, if Chris hadn't have said that, I probably would have jumped into hair pieces or wigs a little bit sooner. But yeah, I think it worked out. It worked out well. I was worried that it wasn't going to read enough, because I mean, when hair goes white, it has like a little bit of a translucency to it.
Yeah.
And when you're painting that on, you can't quite get that. So
right, of course.
Sometimes I would be looking at it going, oh God, is this even going to show up on camera? So you'd have to go a little bit further sometimes. And yeah, so we had a few little hair pieces and wigs in there, but just when they were absolutely necessary. That's when we
and
in that direction.
The standout for me, and I'm sure many, was Robert Downey Jr. Can you guys talk to me about working with that and creating that character together? Because I mean, this is the best work. I love him as an actor. This is the best work I've ever seen him do. And I hope that, it's so subtle that I hope everybody, pays attention and knows how. It's so sad that they can't promote these roles and everything, but because his work was just extraordinary, and you guys were a huge part of that. So can you talk to me about creating that character to be so believable?
I think
visually.
Yeah. Well, Robert was, incredible, because he was so willing to just lean into it from the get-go. He was so excited to be part of it for the role. And when we did our first camera test, we had decided that we would just kind of slick his hair back and see if that looks, if we're going to get away with it, if it's enough. And very quickly he turned to Chris and he was just like, I think we need to adjust my hairline. Like, let's shave it. Like, let's do it. And I think both Chris and I were like, yes, like, this is so exciting. Let's do this. So we did the slick back and all that type of thing. And then eventually at that camera test, we started the process of removing, oh gosh, I would say a third, if not more, through the top of his hair. Yeah. And then taking his hairline back. And
I don't know what that process is. I always hear about it, but what is it? Like, is it shaving it? I mean, what?
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't want me to say that I tweezed it all out. No, that would be horrific.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a slow process of
careful, right?
Of shaving. Yeah.
Okay.
It's slow. He was very patient. It took a hot minute for two of us on top of his head, just doing it step by step. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and then you have to keep this up, obviously, right? Or how does it grow back?
No, you have to keep on top of it. And when we did that first camera test and did that, I don't think he shot for another, like, over a month, right, Luisa? Like, so he was in that realm and in that character quite early on, and having to wear a hat in his own life. We were also bleaching the top of his hair. Then that gave me the opportunity to go to the white grey and then a more steely grey. So depending on where we were in the timeline, I could airbrush it, or temporarily color it a bit darker, or just leave it to be more silvery white for the later stuff.
The different shades of white for the aging.
So his scalp went through a bit.
Deep exfoliation there.
Yeah.
Luisa, did you have anything of note to add to creating the look of Robert Downey Jr. for this?
Yeah, I agree with Jaime Leigh. Like, he was so wanting to be on this project and so ready for whatever we needed to do. And so actually all the actors were really incredible, because the aging's a long time and we got them really pretty quick, but it's still not a quick process. And so they were great being able to sit in the chair, even for an hour and 15 minutes, But yeah, with Jaime Leigh, once his hair was shaved like that, we were having to add the color back into his scalp. That was one of the things that we had to do, because, when a head's or skin underneath hair is exposed, it's not the same color as your face.
Right, of course.
We texture and character with it, or even on his scalp, and then doing a full aging process for him. Which he's an amazing actor, so he knows how to work with all that kind of stuff. So I think that was something that was really great in a lot of his close-ups on his scenes, that he was aware that he had all these tools that we had given him for his character to be able to use, and I think he did. Do you, Emily?
Yeah, absolutely.
It seemed like a very harmonious collaboration for all parties. It was really impeccable work. Speaking of close-ups, this must have been terrifying, but maybe not, about black and white versus color versus IMAX versus, I saw it in 70 millimeter. I mean, how did you deal with all of these different, was there anything that you did differently, knowing that it would be projected and recorded in all these different ways?
On my side, on the makeup side, we definitely did. I mean, I've been lucky enough to work many times on IMAX before, and I'd also done an aging on IMAX before, but only one. So
which one was that, Luisa? Which one was that?
On Interstellar, at the end of Interstellar, there was an aging, and so that had helped. And I think working on IMAX had helped to me to understand what doesn't work from before. But obviously the tests on this one transitioned this into a different realm, just because we had so much work. I mean, everything that Jaime Leigh and I did, whether it was out in daylight or going into a dark room, I mean, it transitions everything. And certainly for the painting of our work, it did make a difference. You had to be aware of whether you were doing an aging for it, exterior, or whether you're doing an aging in like a, like the room that you were saying, the 2022 room, which is a completely different lighting. And then black and white, it does actually change the paintwork of what you do. So I think just talking to the DP, Hoyte is very collaborative and amazing DP. So that was really helpful for my side of changing the lighting within the trailer. So we had tungsten and daylight, so that we could change the lighting, knowing what the scenes were going to be. So we could paint in the trailer towards what would be on set, and then make it stronger if you needed to. Yeah, so definitely changed our side.
Okay. And then when you mentioned that you knew you recognized things that might not work for IMAX from your first experience, what do you remember any of those things?
Yeah, I mean, I know
to watch
that you've
out
seen
for
IMAX. I mean, it's ginormous, obviously. So if there's anything, definitely with prosthetics, but really any makeups, if there's anything that you can see to your eye on close-up glasses in a trailer, that you'll see it on IMAX. So you have to be really, really aware to work into complete detail, like for every shot, whether it's close up or not, just to make sure you're in the realm that it will actually work on IMAX.
Right.
But also a lot of the sheens change. You know, with light and stuff like that. So we had to be aware of that with the aging. So I often used a mattifying agent within the products that I made up to be able to counterbalance that. So we got enough sheen for it to look real, but not too shiny.
Wow. Amazing. How about you, Jaime Leigh?
I think I will be honest, and I relied on Christopher Nolan and Hoyte a lot.
Yeah.
I did my best at guessing and following Luisa's lead. Luisa was very helpful on just kind of catching me up with how Chris works and all about IMAX and all that type of stuff. So that was incredibly helpful. But it was a lot of getting it to the point that I thought it might be right. And then once we got to set, especially if it was something new or a new lighting setup or a new location, Chris would like to have a look at it. So every now and again, Hoyte would also come over and they would discuss, and it would either normally be adding more gray. Was where it kind of came from. And then I mean, just being aware constantly and letting my team know that, just reminder, IMAX.
Okay. Yeah. Take another look. Now, I saw Don't Worry, Darling in IMAX. But I'm just thinking as you guys are talking that, like, might be, you might not even know, or this might be a silly question, but do you know this was being shot, you know, knowing that it was going to be on IMAX? Can that be done later? Can you say we're going to distribute this in IMAX, or do you know? I don't know. Like if it wasn't shot in IMAX and then with that purpose in mind, and then they decide later to put it in IMAX. Can that happen? I'm not sure.
I guess digitally.
Chris actually, right? Chris actually has shot a lot of this in IMAX, so he knew where it was going to be. And then for the black and white, the film that they made, it was made for this film specifically. So I know Hoyte's been speaking about it.
Wow.
Yeah, this had never been done before.
Tell me more about that. How was that? How did that happen?
Well, just nobody had shot on this film resolution and for like how Chris wanted it, but to be in black and white, so they made it.
That's
right,
extraordinary.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I didn't realize it at the time that when we were going to see dailies and stuff, I had no idea.
Wow. So
we saw dailies on IMAX, so that was very helpful, you know.
That must have been very exciting and stressful.
Yeah. We watched the tests and everything. So I mean, it's stressful, but at the same time, when you've got like you've got somebody directing you the way Chris does, and then having Hoyte, they really know what they want and know how to help you. And so I think taking their lead and having that guidance, and then being able to see any things that you just go, that's not going to work, pre-see it and test, it is helpful, even though it's not for the faint.
Right.
And you do have to, I mean, you have to put so much trust and just let go, like into your director, and just know that Chris has an eagle eye. Like if he will see things, whereas some other directors just don't. It's not what they're looking for. They're only looking at performance, and that is kind of it. So with us not having monitors, or possibly not being able to be anywhere close to being able to see what's being shot, you kind of lose that control, I suppose, of understanding what is being seen. But just knowing that Chris is who he is and how he works. It's just like, okay, I know that they stepped into the room looking how they should look, but if anything should happen in there, I know that Chris is going to see it and call me in if he needs something adjusted.
Right.
So
oh, that's really good. I know there are some people who think like, oh, they've got it. They, but then you're not allowed to be anywhere near it. And then you're like, how can I get it? How can I not be there? And, trust that this is all being taken care of. But you've worked with Chris several times, Luisa. How did you begin your relationship with him?
I first started on Inception.
Okay.
So, I met up with Chris
Fantastic.
and ended up doing Inception. And then I've been lucky enough to work. I think this is my 6th film with Chris. It's been since Inception, which has been great. It's a very different way of working, like Jaime Leigh said, but it's great working with somebody who really knows what they want and really will let you do what you do to help facilitate anything that needs to happen within our departments to help the film. And then he always chooses incredible actors, which really helps, I felt. I mean, it's really, when you're stepping into something like this, where it's this much work with aging, it's so great when the actors are fully on board and really want to do it, and are okay with the process. It makes it just a really great working environment. And Chris Lee,
yeah.
And this was your first time working
and Chris
with... I'm sorry, Louise, I didn't get that last thing you said. What did you...
I was just saying that, and Chris really leads that. Like he's definitely, he directs everybody, the actors and the crew. So you're very aware that you have somebody that answers everything you need, and that helps a lot in this kind of environment.
And respects what you need. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Jaime Leigh, this was your first time working with Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, and how did that come to be?
I think it was through my agent. So Luisa and I have the same agent, and she called me one day when I had kind of strictly told her to not get hold of me because I was having downtime, and I was just I don't want to hear about anything. And she called me and she's just like, I know I'm not supposed to be calling, but an opportunity may have come up. And I was just like, all right, go on then. Let's see how this goes.
Yes.
And working with Chris, I was a little nervous because I knew that he worked differently, but I have to say that I absolutely loved it. Just being involved with the fittings with cast so early on, and it being so collaborative, and the communication being so clear and direct, and just how everything works on set. Just, I don't know, it felt really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I don't think, let me start that again. I think every time I work on a film, of course, cast are very happy to be there, but I had never come across probably every single actor that came into that trailer was just like, I cannot believe I'm on a Christopher Nolan film. This is so exciting. Like, bucket list director. They were just like giddy with excitement and just so stoked to be there. So in turn, that of course makes our jobs a little easier because they're
great
just like,
energy.
Let's do this. Whatever you want to do, let's do it. I'm excited. And it's just, it makes for, really great energy and good vibe. So it's fun.
Killian's so reserved and sweet and quiet and gorgeous. And so what is his energy like on set? Is he in character all the time? I've never heard how he works. I would imagine him to be like he is in real life, just very reserved and in interviews and stuff. So I was curious what he's like to work with. Is it very serious? Does he make a joke?
He makes really good dad jokes, which is something I was kind of teasing him about. He's just like, my son says the same thing. It's like, yeah, they're full dad jokes. But yeah, he's just very professional, very easy to work with, right, Luisa?
Effortless,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
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 He's different with depending on which role he's in. But with this one, you know, it was a heavy load. I mean, the film's called Oppenheimer, so you know, the gravity of what that is was not lost on Cillian, and yeah, he's really professional. I mean, really, and he's a really great human being. So it was very enjoyable to work with him, you know, and yeah, and it was a huge journey for him because obviously he was having to be aware of you know, everything from body language, you know, the size of his body, you know, everything. It was a huge sort of journey, a trek. And so I was amazed at how gracious and kind he could be under that circumstance. But yeah, he's very calm always.
He's one of our greatest, I think. Yeah. He's this, I mean, this, did he, I mean, was masterpiece like thrown around? I mean, this film is a masterpiece and it's been referred to as one a lot. And was that the feeling that you were part of something great when you were on set from everybody? You had confidence that this would be the way that it turned out? There's so much.
You're always just too busy to think about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think well, this is my feeling on it, just personally, but I felt like every Chris's movie, I felt very lucky to be on it because the way Chris works, which is he leads by example, and you just keep running to be as good as he is at everything he does, you know, that every film is like that. So this one, I think, felt like that. And everybody, like Jaime Leigh had said, all the actors just wanted to be on board, and we did too. And obviously the story was incredible, but I don't think any of us thought that far ahead. I think there was so much work and so much to do every day. And because we're doing always everything practical, as you know, with Chris's movies, it's pretty extreme, a lot of the environments you're in. So you're just really concentrating work. And I think I hope that helped the film have a down day. Like that's not possible. You know, you have to just keep going. And I think so. I don't think anyone got lost in the bigger picture or the end part. It was just.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, keep swimming.
At least that's how I work. So, well, how about you, Jaime?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything that you just said. But you don't really work on something, and I don't know, I don't think I've ever worked on something and had those conversations. It seems strange. And also, I mean, you're always just too busy you're just trying to get that day or that week sorted out, and you can look at it and be like, okay, I'm happy with how this is looking. That's great. And all you want is your director and your actors to be happy. So when they're happy daily, you're just like, great, you're doing a good job. So that's kind of as far as it goes. Normally.
But I noticed that, I mean, Jaime Leigh, I've talked to you like 3 times about your amazing work, but like, I noticed that the common thread is that you always, you know, it's pretty egoless. And Luisa, I'm getting that vibe from you as well, that once you put ego in there, like I'm making the best, you know, this is it. This is gonna Oscars for everyone every day, that those things are the ones that don't come out. You know, you can see the ego, you know, so the work here was just so believable and authentic. And I think I've noticed in talking to people that it's usually a removal of that ego that creates that realistic outcome, you know. And it's just really about the craft, which you guys have clearly shown. I mean, the stakes are so high for a film like this. People don't realize that when things look so great, it sucks for the people who did it, because they don't know how much work that, like all the work that we've just discussed, you know, how hard it was to make it look that effortless. So I just applaud your work in this film. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think part of it is wanting people to see the film and nobody comment on what we do. Exactly. You know, we're there to facilitate. Exactly. It shouldn't, if people come out talking about coming out and literally talking about hair and makeup, you kind of, in my view, you've lost what a film's about, especially like a real, you know, story like this. It should be invisible.
I agree.
You know, and then afterwards, if people then realize what they've seen, then they can think about. But I think that was a big thing for us because it's IMAX. I mean, the looks had to work for the story to work. You know, it couldn't be. It isn't something where, you know, you're transitioning somebody, you know, whatever, to look like an elephant, or, you know, something where you want it to be seen. It's something that actually you literally got these actors within a room of 20 other people that have nothing on them, and you want it to just seem like they're there as a character.
Yes.
It's yeah. And so I think, definitely you just have to see yourself as a facilitator rather than it being about what we do.
Right.
You know, but then when you're working with a leader that appreciates what you do, then that it works. Yes. You know, cohesively. It's really a good blend.
Yes. To feel appreciated is very rare and feels very good. That is the takeaway. When those in the higher level know that you are doing everything imaginable to move mountains, to make things look like no mountains were moved. But congratulations on all of this. Now I'm gonna go watch it again. How can I see Oppenheimer now? Is it digitally released yet?
I think so.
I don't think so either.
Well, I think it's still in. I was talking to a friend there saying they're going to go and see it on IMAX. Still.
Okay.
I think it's still out
I believe it.
It's amazing, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was lovely talking to you ladies today, and I appreciate you taking the time again. And I look forward to seeing you talk about this more as we get closer to award season. And congratulations.
Look Behind the Look is a Vinyl Foot production, written by me, your host, Tiffany Bartok, produced by Jace Bartok, and edited by Nicole Tucker. If you're interested in learning more, find our video version on the YouTube channel, Look Behind the Look Podcast. There you can see rare photos and clips from our guests. And please follow us on Twitter at LookBehindPod and Instagram at LookBehindTheLook. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. And tell your friends and spread the word. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or any podcatcher of your choice. Thanks for listening to Look Behind the Look.